Hi guys, my name is Rajan, also known as the Dentist Raj, and today is another video in our new series called Step by Step Study Tips, where I take you through some of the study tips that I use in my GCSEs and A-levels, which help me get all A stars and A's. Today I'm going to be talking about when to start revision, and there's no right answer, everybody's different, but I'm going to be talking about the plan that I use which helped me get into dental school. Timing your revision is absolutely crucial. You don't want to be leaving your revision too late, which is going to leave you cramming, stressing and underprepared, but you don't want to start your revision too early, where you learn that bulk of the information quite early on in your revision schedule and then forget it by the time your exam date comes around. So here are the stages that I take in my revision period and why I start my revision around 10 weeks before the exam date. The exam date that I'm going to be using just as a basis will be the 15th of May, so mid-May, because that's around my first exam this year, but also be counted down in weeks up until the exam, which will allow you to use it according to whenever your exam date is. So without further ado, let's have a look at when we start. We're going to start at the beginning of March, and this is about 10 weeks before the exam day, and this is when we're going to form our revision schedule. Then over the next week or 2 weeks, we'll begin compiling all our notes and all our resources, which will take us to the middle of March, 8 weeks before our exam day, which is when we begin our real hardcore revision, where we focus on active recall techniques. We'll then have this 6-week block of revision, which will take us to the start of May, 2 weeks before the exam, where we're going to be doing a past paper, and then for the final 2 weeks, up until the actual exam date, we'll be using retrospective revision to ensure that we tick every single topic off. If you guys are new around here, subscribe down below. We're on the road to 400 subscribers, and we're not too far off, so make sure you're one of the first 400. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it and you want more study videos, and leave a comment if you have any questions about your revision period. So at the start of March, around 10 weeks before my exam period, I like to draw up my revision timetable. If you haven't drawn up your revision timetable yet, I've got a really good video in one of these corners which summarizes all the best revision timetable resources on the platform, which will help you make a beautiful and effective revision timetable. Go check that video out, make a really effective timetable, and then come back here to see what the next stage is. So with your revision timetable planned out, it's now important to compile all of our notes and resources together. And I like to do this about 2 months before the exam day. So let's say 8 weeks, the middle of March, I want all my resources and notes together so I don't have to go searching for anything. This will inevitably vary from subject to subject, so make sure you cater it to your own needs. If you're really confident on a subject, you perhaps don't need to start this stage until closer to the exam, but if you're less confident, maybe you need to start it a couple of weeks in advance. Just personalize that according to your own strengths and weaknesses. This also gives us a 2-week buffer at the start of March to find any resources, find any textbooks that you haven't maybe gone over yet, read any final chapters, all that kind of stuff. You just have a 2-week buffer to be able to go through all that information before we then get onto a hardcore revision. Textbooks, crib notes, online resources, past papers, end of chapter questions, with everything together, we can now move on to a hardcore revision about 8 weeks before the exam, and that is in the middle of March. So I always like to work towards a past paper, which is going to be about 2 weeks before our exam. And if I treat this past paper as the real thing, it puts me in a really good place for the actual exam. So this gives me a gap of 6 weeks from the middle of March to the start of May, when I'm going to be taking my past paper, where I can really sit down and focus on doing the bulk of my revision. And the technique that we're going to be using through the 6-week period is active recall. I've discussed active recall in more depth in a previous video, so if you want to go check that out, check it in this video. But essentially, during our revision, we're no longer going over information for the first time, we're actually going over it for a second and third time. And therefore, now we should really be retaining that information better. So what's important is to actually test that you're retaining that information and frequently try and recall the information that you're taking in. And that is what active recall is all about. So whether you want to use flashcards or end of topic questions or oral explanations, maybe to a friend, which is what I do, actively recalling information to test whether you're actually able to understand and retain that knowledge is the most effective way to revise. And this takes us to 2 weeks before our exam at the start of May, and this is where I'm going to be doing my past paper. The past paper will give me a really good understanding of the position that I'm at in my revision, whether I need to put more work in or whether I'm at a really good stage in my revision process and I can focus on other subjects. Taking this past paper as importantly is the real thing, so ideally I'm attaining the same grade as I would in the real exam. It's unlikely that you're going to move more than 1 grade boundary from that past paper to the real thing. So it's there for self-assurance and confidence as much as anything else. Another vital part of analysis of your past papers is looking at the mark scheme. Yes, having done end of chapter questions and end of topic questions, whether you see booklets from your teachers or you've just resourced content yourself, you'll have an idea of what the examiners are looking for. But be sure to read the past paper mark scheme in great detail to try and work out what tripped you up, because often questions are repeated, and so having a really good idea of what the examiners are looking for will put you in a much better place to tackle a question second time around. And then the final 2 weeks will be based on how I do in that specific past paper. Analysing my performance on the past paper, I'll then use Ali Abdul's retrospective revision schedule, which I did some kind of a review in this video. So following that past paper, I'll write down every single topic in that subject, and I'll give myself some kind of rating, whether that's score based or whether that's colour coding, according to how confident I am in that specific topic. Then, having a look at the topics that I'm least confident on, I'll begin reviewing these specific topics, and a few days later, I'll have a look and see whether I've now reaffirmed my knowledge in these topics that I was not confident on, and whether there were maybe certain other topics that I can now focus my attention towards. And this will allow me to ensure that I'm performing at a consistent level across the board and I don't really have any weaknesses. As always, try and personalise these 2 weeks towards the exam to yourself as much as possible. If you performed exceptionally well in the past paper, you don't necessarily focus on the subject anymore, and you can focus on a different subject which requires more attention. So just take it as you go and see what's going to benefit you the most. And finally, we reach our exam date in the middle of May, and we've used the last 10 weeks to revise as efficiently as possible. We've created a revision timetable at an early date, before then using active recall techniques to ensure information is retained, before then moving on to a past paper to assess our level and see if we're performing at the desired grade that we want to be, before then ironing out any minor discrepancies in the final 2 weeks in the lead up to our exam. And now you're in a great position to sit your exam and hit the grades that you want to achieve in the summer. I really hope this video gave you a better insight into why you should be starting revision now, 10 weeks before your exam period, and I hope it gives you that bit more confidence in these 8 to 10 weeks that you're still in a good position to start revision and perform really well when the exams and tests do roll around. Subscribe if you enjoyed the content and want to see some more study tips, like the video if you found it helpful and you're going to take it forward in your revision, and comment if you have any questions. I've been the Dentist Raj, and I'll see you guys soon.